You might think you're running the show, that every decision you make is guided by clear intention and free will, but let's shatter that illusion right now. You are least free where you feel most certain the shadow doesn't exist. That confidence you cling to, the belief that you're the rational author of your own story, it's the perfect hiding place for the parts you refuse to see. If you're the author of your own life, why does the narrative keep repeating the same tragedy? Why do your best intentions so often collapse into patterns you swore you'd escape? Procrastination, self-doubt, anxiety, or the poison of endless indecision. This is not a glitch in your psychology. It is architecture, and the architect has a name: the Jungian shadow. Picture early 21st century Europe, Jung's world, scarred by the industrial devastation and moral chaos of World War I. The continent was swamped with optimism about progress. Yet underneath all the things that clean, civilized society rejected, rage, fear, shame, hunger for status, even destructive creativity, didn't disappear. They went underground, into psychological exile. This is how a shadow is born, not as some pop psychology dark side you flex on Instagram, but as the warehouse of every impulse, memory, and possibility your ego can't stand to face. Jung said it best: everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. Right now, your shadow is scripting your self-sabotage. Try to recall a time you blew up a relationship or torched an opportunity for no good reason. Beneath that explosion, a repressed self was at work, a bomb on a time delay, buried deep, ticking beneath the facade. The shadow runs malware scripts in your operating system, quietly hijacking your life every time you ignore, repress, or minimize an inconvenient emotion. You believe you're too evolved for petty jealousy, rage, or self-pity, so those drives fester and multiply in the dark. Their fingerprints are visible in the patterns of failure you refuse to own. Let's destroy another cliché. Integration of the shadow isn't about embracing your inner badass or cultivating some edgy persona. It's not a one-off dramatic catharsis you can display as a badge of enlightenment. Real integration demands a lifelong discipline of ruthless self-honesty, painful, destabilizing, and often deeply disruptive to your social comfort. Think back to our Nietzsche episode. When you suppress your worst urges in the name of morality, you don't erase them, you just plant the seed for resentment and eventual implosion. Here's where it stings. You're not the victim of your own shadow, you are its co-conspirator. Every time you look away from a part of yourself, you give it more power over your fate. But this isn't just a private struggle. In a moment, you'll see how the shadow doesn't merely sabotage individual lives, it opens you up to manipulation on a mass scale, feeding the very forces that want to control and define you. Are you still sure you know who's writing your story? You think your darkest impulses, your flashes of rage or shame or envy, are private flaws, something you can ignore, bury, or maybe even outgrow. But that is an illusion, and a dangerous one. The shadow you suppress doesn't simply vanish, it leaks, not just into your relationships, but into the bloodstream of the groups you claim as your own. Every time you join a mob, fan a flame, or cheer on a cancellation, you may be acting directly out of the very shadow you deny. Let's get uncomfortably specific. The concept of the shadow, carved out by Carl Jung in the haunted aftermath of World War I, was no abstract theory. Europe was a continent traumatized by violence, shattered faith, and the mechanical erasure of identity. The polite veneer of civilization was only skin deep. Below, unacknowledged resentments, bigotries, even entire collective identities festered, waiting to erupt. Jung grasped something that cuts straight into your present-day consciousness. The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. This isn't some personality test result. This is a psychological detonator sitting right beside your operating system. Projection. Here's where your shadow flips from a personal issue to collective dynamite. What you most resent, fear, or hate in others is very often what you secretly deny in yourself. Social media is less a town square and more a mirror maze, where everyone's demons are reflected back, larger and uglier. Outrage goes viral, not because of facts, but because it gives you a socially acceptable way to exercise your shadow. Collective exorcisms, executed in comment sections and news feeds, become a kind of psychological mass ritual. Every time you see a scapegoat trending, you're witnessing a collective exorcism, one that ends by disabling critical thinking. Here's the operational definition you need to learn by heart. Projection occurs when repressed aspects of the shadow are externally demonized in groups, ideologies, or opponents, making collective self-sabotage not just a private affliction, but a widespread epidemic. Scapegoating is not an exception, it's the rule. Cancel culture, outrage cycles. They aren't symptoms of progress, they are symptoms of mass psychic contagion. Viral memes and ideological dogpiles act like shadow outbreaks, psychic pandemics fueled by mass denial, not by facts. Don't hide behind convenient myths. The collective shadow isn't just about evil regimes or bad apples. The mundane mechanisms, Twitter mobs, media panics, tribal politics, are modern rituals where shadows feed. Awareness's slogans become camouflage, not cure, unless you do the harder work of personal confrontation first. If outrage is always justified, why does it leave societies in ruins instead of reformed? Because those unresolved emotions, the shadow you ignore in yourself, are the ones most easily triggered by outside manipulation. The next time you feel part of a crowd, swept by anger or self-righteousness, ask yourself, whose shadow are you really serving? So where does that leave you? At a crossroads. In our next part, how do you weaponize this knowledge for autonomy instead of denial or cynicism? The answer isn't comfort, it's dangerous, and it starts with you. Your freedom begins the moment your self-image is shattered by the truths you've spent your life avoiding. Everything before this, your moments of self-sabotage, your obsessions with other people's failures, your desperate attempts to stay comfortable, has been a rehearsal. This is where your real agency starts, and it's going to feel more like psychological war than a wellness retreat. Let's strip away the fantasy. Shadow integration is not about manifesting positivity or drifting into some midlife spiritual glow-up. It is a disciplined, and at times, brutal process of hunting down the forbidden or denied impulses inside you, not to exile or destroy them, but to extract their power. Jung warned, to confront a person with his shadow is to show him his own light, and that light isn't warm or gentle. It's a forensic spotlight, illuminating everything you'd rather not see: your envy, your rage, your cowardice, your manipulative urges. These aren't spiritual pollutants to detox from. They are the raw ingredients of your potential, waiting for you to become their master or their prisoner. Ask yourself, who would you be if you stopped blaming society and started interrogating your own reflection? Every cycle of self-sabotage, every mass panic you see online is the shadow at work. It's a signal. On offer is an ultimatum. Stay a pawn of your unacknowledged darkness, or become a psychological double agent, surveilling and disarming the saboteur within. But know this, there's a price. When you begin to face your shadow, you will encounter fear, guilt, even self-disgust. You'll risk alienating the people who benefit from your compliance, and you may lose the comfort of groupthink. Every step you take toward integration will feel like psychological alchemy, turning your hidden lead into rare gold only you can mine. If you think this is self-indulgence, you're missing the point entirely. Avoiding this confrontation guarantees you'll remain easy prey for manipulation by culture, by technology, by your own reflex cravings. So what does the work actually look like? Start with shadow journaling. Record the thoughts, reactions, or fantasies you're tempted to deny or justify. Try the projection stop technique. Whenever you find yourself hating, resenting, or fixating on someone else's flaws, ask what parts of you are being disowned. Map your triggers, not just the obvious ones, but the subtle cues that provoke shame, blame, or retreat. This isn't about controlling every impulse. It's about inviting your internal adversary to the negotiating table, giving it a voice, and then deciding consciously what gets expressed and what does not. Integration isn't a one-time event. It's a daily rebellion against the ways you've been trained to betray yourself. The alternative, lifelong sabotage and manipulation. You may find, in the heat of that confrontation, that the parts of you you feared most are also your greatest sources of autonomy, creativity, and intelligence. You are no longer at the mercy of your shadow. You are the alchemist, forging self-destruction into radical agency. So here's the choice. As real and urgent as it gets, continue existing as a bundle of unconscious reactions, or risk the pain of radical self-honesty for the possibility of authentic freedom. There's no guarantee of comfort, just the relentless clarity and power of seeing yourself whole.